The Square-1 is one of the most classic Rubik's Cube style twisty puzzles out there. Notably, it's the only WCA event that actually shapeshifts as you solve it. But what you may not have known is that there's a popular variant of the Square-1 that's been around for decades, humorously called the Square-2. It's basically a Square-1 with more pieces on each layer, and they're all the same size. Now the reason I'm getting around to this just now is because ShengShou, known for making vast lineups of obscure twisty puzzles, has just recently mass-produced not only a Square-2 and a Square-1, but also a Square-0, which I'll get to later. So I actually want to go from biggest to smallest, checking out these three puzzles, two of which I have never tried anything like before. Anyway, let's get started with the Square-2. I like the abstract SQ on the front of the box, the rest of it's mostly Chinese. It is under their Mr. M lineup, which means that it is magnetic, which is pretty cool for a non-standard puzzle like this, although I guess that's sort of standard nowadays. And here is the actual puzzle. Now if you didn't have an idea in your head of what I meant earlier, then hopefully this makes a little bit more sense to you. It also comes with this instruction booklet, which hopefully we won't have to use. So let's get it out of the plastic here. Again, I have never tried one of these before, so I am just as curious as you how this is going to work and how tricky it's going to be to solve. So right off the bat, it feels just like a normal Square-1. It's definitely magnetized on all the layers. The slice layer magnets feel a little bit weak, but oh well. You can of course do your normal Square-1 algorithms and all that. You could even solve it exactly like a normal Square-1, but where it really gets weird is where you, well, do some corner cutting. Oh my gosh, that is not a shape that you normally get on a Square-1. That's so pointy. Okay, we're quickly approaching the point of no return, so let's just solve it again real quick. I want to try out some things before I actually scramble it. What if we just do a slice layer like that? That is so weird. It's like the same shape, but everything is all just wrong. Wait a minute, did I just do what I think I did? Let's get this slice layer back to normal, like this, and yeah, I just changed the color scheme of this Square-1. Look at this, it's totally wrong. So that's definitely not possible on a normal Square-1. I flipped the white and the yellow while messing up the color scheme. That is fascinating. Anyway, I've kept you guys and myself waiting long enough. Let's just go ahead and scramble this up and see how crazy spiky it gets. It is actually easier to scramble than a normal Square-1 because you don't really have to worry about things being lined up. You can kind of just turn each layer as far as you want it to, and you don't get any of those weird Square-1 lockups. Anyway, that is a weird sight, having one corner that has the same color on both pieces. But I guess that's the wrong way of thinking about it, because it's not one corner, it literally is two separate pieces, and you can put those pieces wherever you want to. So I think this thing is sufficiently scrambled, but instead of trying to solve it right away, I am going to save that until later in the video. First up, let's go right down the line and check out the ShengShou Square-1. Obviously, I'm not expecting anything too crazy from this. It should just be a normal magnetic Square-1. I already have one that I'm happy with for speed solving. I just thought I'd get the ShengShou one so that I have the complete collection. And yeah, right off the bat, the cube feels pretty similar to the Square-2, except for obviously being a Square-1. It is actually pretty tight out of the box. I think I should loosen that. There we go. I wouldn't say that it was any tighter than the Square-2 to begin with. It's just that because it's a Square-1, a puzzle that I'm used to speed solving, I just expect it to turn a little bit faster out of the box. That also gives you a cool look at the magnets for those upper and bottom layers, although unfortunately, like most magnetic Square-1s, it doesn't prevent you from doing locky moves like this. In other words, there's just as strong of a click into place no matter where you turn it, whereas on the MGC Square-1, they somehow managed to arrange the magnets to skip over those big corner moves so that you don't lock up. Anyway, that aside, the turning itself is, fine. I probably wouldn't speed solve on it, but for $11, if you're a beginner and you want a magnetic Square-1, I would say it's definitely acceptable. It could probably use a little bit of lube too, so unless it's just the best option you can afford, I would probably go with something a little bit cheaper or more expensive with the $20 MGC. Anyway, I'll spare you a mediocre 30-second Square-1 solve and just move straight on to the Square-0. Now this variation is a little bit more mysterious, not quite as popular as the Square-2. You'll see why when I open it up. Basically, the concept is a little bit silly, but also kind of genius. Best I can tell, it was invented in 2015 by YouTuber DG Cubes. I'll link his video down below. You can go like my 7-year-old comment. And here it is, the Square-0. Now, if you're anything like me, your first reaction might be to laugh because it looks so trivial and ridiculous. But then on second thought, you realize that it literally is the perfect continuation to the Square-1, just in the opposite direction, down to 0. If you still don't get it, what they've done is, instead of cutting the corners in half to make more pieces on each side, like on the Square-2, instead they've fused a corner and an edge together so that you have these wonky shaped pieces like this, so you have less pieces on each side. And the result is, yeah, very trivial. Funnily enough, it seems like they still have used the same magnetic mechanism from before, so it still snaps into place right here, and right here, even though in this case it would have been very easy for them to only make it snap into place there. But who cares? Because it's a Square-0. Also, all the pieces are the same size, so it's not that hard to just line everything up. It feels and kind of looks like the 2x2 of a Square-1. Except the funny thing is, I can actually tell you right now with certainty that this is actually way easier to solve than a 2x2. It only really takes 2 steps, and those 2 steps are very straightforward. How do I know this? Well, because this cube is really just a slightly easier version than the 2x2x3. You might not see the resemblance at first, but when you start turning it, you realize that every move you do is just a slice move, turning it 180 degrees like this, and then you can do top and bottom layers like this, 4 pieces on each side. It really is exactly the same puzzle. The only difference is that you can't do a slice move in both axes. You're basically taking this puzzle, which is already easier than a 2x2, and then making it slightly easier. The way I would solve it as a beginner is try and get white on one side and yellow on the other side. This should be completely intuitive and super easy, basically just matching up colors and putting them together like this, just like corner orientation on a Square-1. And from there, you can either do the same algorithm multiple times, or if you're good with Square-1, just recognize the corner permutation case and do the appropriate algorithm to solve it. And there we go. We just have to fix the slice layer, which is also super easy, just like that. And there we go, it's solved. So yeah, basically just 2 steps, 1 algorithm. You can check out my 2x2x3 tutorial if you get stuck, but it is a super easy cube to solve. But speaking of super easy to solve, well, not the Square-2. I don't know if I'm even going to be able to solve this thing, but I'm definitely going to give it a shot. Let's go ahead and try and start it like a normal Square-1 by doing cube shape somehow. Okay, I think I just had a really good idea there, which is pairing up all these corner pieces. Not necessarily into the correct color pairs, but just into these normal Square-1 looking corner shapes. Then I immediately got really stuck. I was like, wait, how do I do this last one? Because I'm breaking apart this one and breaking apart this one. But then I realized that it sort of just works out if you do it that way. And I think this would be a normal Square-1 cube shape. Yeah, it's a little bit hard to see, but we have 3 edges right there, plus 1 right there. So let's turn that like that. And then we have 2 plus 2. And so if we just do this, and then this, that makes kite plus scallop. And then we can do a few more moves just like we would do on a normal Square-1. And there we go. We have a cube shape just like normal. So now the question is, where do I go from here? I think the next step would be to orient all the pieces. So to have like all white on one side and all yellow on the other side. But I'm not sure how to do that. Actually, if I could just fix these 2 corner pieces, have one be yellow and one be white, then it would be just like a normal Square-1, but I'm not exactly sure how to do that. Aha, I think I figured it out. So by having these 2 pieces sort of opposite each other like this, and then having the same color piece in this other spot right here, so white on both of them, we can just do a slice move like this, and that'll fix the piece while not messing anything else up. So now we can just do the normal orientation algorithms like we would do on a normal Square-1. Aha, orientation complete. Now here's where things get a little bit trickier, because even though it may look like a normal Square-1, some of these corner pieces are still very messed up, and so obviously this can't be solved using normal Square-1 algorithms. However, here's my thinking. I know how to solve the 4 edges on each side of the cube. In fact, given this case right here, I can just do this algorithm, and that'll essentially solve these 4 of them into their correct spots. So now, what if I were to just misalign this a little bit and now pretend that this piece is an edge, along with this piece, and this piece. So all these right half of the corners, they're essentially 4 edges, just like we had right here before. Presumably, I can use the same set of edge algorithms that I already know to now solve these 4 half corner pieces. Let's try it. Well, I accidentally ended up solving the left half of the corners instead, but the same principle applies. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing for these right corners. Wow, that was actually super easy. In fact, you could do all of that with just 1 algorithm. The tricky part was just figuring out which way to have the cube aligned when starting the algorithm, because I'm used to only doing it on the edges. Anyway, let's go around to the other side of the cube. This is going to be a tiny bit harder because we have to make sure not to mess up what we've done already, but it should be essentially the exact same process, except for maybe parity at the end. Also, I just realized that we got our color scheme wrong. Let's go ahead and fix that real quick. Hey, wait a minute. That's a case that I know. That's just a U-perm. I can do it just like this, and then the entire Square-2 should be solved. That was actually easier than I thought it would be. Of course, it is possible to do the parity algorithm on this cube, so I could have ended up with parity there. In fact, you could probably even have parity between 2 corner pieces, which would be kind of wacky, but it would use the same algorithm. I wonder, because there's so many different ways to turn this thing, if you could come up with a more efficient parity algorithm. I bet you probably could. My method of solving it was also probably not the most efficient, but I'd say that something like this would work great for someone casually solving this cube. By the way, the one algorithm that's really helpful for that last step is -20 / 30 / -1 -1 / -2 1 / and that'll just swap these back pairs of pieces. Any Square-1 speed solvers will probably know that already. I just thought I'd put it out there. And of course, by aligning the cube a little bit differently at the beginning, you can of course swap corners instead of just the edges. Anyway, that is the Square-2, Square-1, and Square-0. Definitely a steady ramp up in difficulty as the numbers increase, and I would say each one of these cubes introduces its own unique challenge. By the way, the prices are $11 for the Square-1 and then $16 for the Square-0 or Square-2. I think that's pretty reasonable, and if you're going to invest in any lineup of ShengShou puzzles like this is definitely a good one to get. The relatively low prices and just the fun variety of challenges to solve all these just makes it a really good lineup. Of course, as usual, they'll be linked in the description below at thecubicle.com. You can use discount code Z3Cubing for 5% off any of them. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed the video because that's pretty much it, and I'll see you guys next time.